The rain came down hard that night. It was the kind of rain that made people stay inside, close their windows, and forget about the world outside. Danny Cole stood at his kitchen sink, washing the last of the dinner plates. His daughter Lily had already gone to bed, tired from a long day at school. The house was quiet except for the sound of water hitting the roof. Danny was 34 years old. He had brown hair that was starting to show a few gray strands, and his hands were rough from years of working as a mechanic. He owned a small auto repair shop in the town of Oregon. It was not a big town. Everyone knew everyone. People waved at each other on the street and helped their neighbors when times got hard. 3 years ago, Danny's wife passed away from an illness that came too fast and left too soon. Now it was just him and Lily. She was 8 years old with her mother's bright eyes and her father's stubborn spirit. Danny worked hard every day to give her a good life. He was not rich, but they had enough. They had each other. He dried his hands on a towel and looked out the window. The forest behind his property was dark and full of shadows. His farmhouse sat on 5 acres of land, most of it wild and overgrown. He liked it that way. It gave him space to breathe. Then he saw the light. It was not like lightning. It was steady and bright, falling from the sky like a dying star. It disappeared behind the tree line with a sound like thunder mixed with breaking glass. The ground shook for just a moment, and then everything went still. Danny stood frozen at the window. His heart was beating fast. He knew he should call someone, the police maybe, or the fire department, but something pulled at him, something he could not explain. He grabbed his jacket and a flashlight from the drawer. The rain soaked through his clothes within minutes. He walked into the forest, following the smell of smoke and burned wood. Branches scratched at his face. His boots sank into the mud, but he kept walking. He found the crash site in a small clearing. The object was not a plane. It was not a satellite. It was something else entirely. The metal was black and twisted, broken into pieces that still glowed with heat. Strange symbols were carved into the surface, symbols that Danny had never seen before. Smoke rose from the wreckage and mixed with the rain. And lying in the middle of it all was a creature. Danny stopped breathing. It was a dragon. He had seen pictures in Lily's storybooks. He had watched movies with flying lizards that breathed fire, but this was real. This was lying in front of him, bleeding gold-colored blood onto the forest floor. The dragon was huge, maybe 40 feet long from head to tail. Its scales were a dull bronze color, scratched and from what looked like centuries of battle. One of its wings was bent at a terrible angle, clearly broken. Its eyes were closed, and its breath came in shallow, painful gasps. Danny knew he should run. Every part of his brain was screaming at him to get away, to protect himself, to protect Lily. But his feet would not move. He looked at the dragon and saw something that surprised him. He saw an old creature, alone and dying. He thought about his father, who had spent his last months in a hospital bed with no one to hold his hand. Danny had been too young, too scared, too far away. He had promised himself that he would never let anyone die alone again if he could help it. He walked closer. The dragon's eyes opened. They were gold, deep and ancient, filled with pain and confusion. A low growl rumbled from its throat, but there was no strength behind it. "Easy," Danny said softly. He held up his hands to show he meant no harm. "Easy, I am not going to hurt you." The dragon stared at him. Its massive head turned slightly, studying this small human who had wandered into its destruction. It tried to speak, but the words came out in a language Danny did not understand. Then, with great effort, the dragon switched to English. "Leave me," it said. The voice was deep and tired. "I am dying. There is nothing you can do." Danny shook his head. "Maybe, maybe not, but I am not leaving you out here in the rain." The dragon looked at him with something like surprise. "You do not know what I am." "I can see what you are," Danny said. "You are hurt, you are alone, and it is cold out here." He did not wait for an answer. He turned and walked back toward his house. When he returned 20 minutes later, he was carrying blankets, a tarp, and a thermos of hot soup. The dragon had not moved. Its eyes followed Danny as he covered the creature's body with the tarp and tucked blankets around its wounded form. "This will not save me," the dragon said. "Maybe not," Danny replied, "but it will keep you warm tonight." He sat down on a fallen log nearby, ignoring the rain that continued to fall. He opened the thermos and poured some soup into the cap. "I do not know if you can eat this," he said, "but it is hot and it might help." The dragon did not respond, but after a long moment it lowered its head and allowed Danny to pour the soup near its mouth. It drank slowly with difficulty. They sat together in silence as the storm raged around them. "Why?" the dragon finally asked. "Why are you helping me? You do not know me, you owe me nothing." Danny thought about the question. He thought about his father, about all the times he had wished someone would just show up and help when everything felt impossible. "Because no one should have to be alone when they are hurting," he said simply. "That is just how it should be." The dragon's golden eyes studied him for a long time. There was something ancient in that gaze, something that had seen wars and empires and the birth and death of stars. But there was also something new, something the dragon did not quite understand. "What is your name, human?" the dragon asked. Danny Cole." The dragon closed its eyes. "I am." "Well," Danny said, pulling his jacket against the cold, "let us see if we can get you through the night." He did not know that this moment would change everything. He did not know that the creature before him had once commanded fleets of starships and decided the fate of worlds. He did not know that his simple act of kindness would one day echo across the galaxy. All he knew was that someone needed help, and he was there to give it. That was enough for now. The first week was the hardest. Danny spent every morning before sunrise checking on. The dragon was too weak to move, too broken to fly, and too proud to ask for help. But Danny helped anyway. He dragged more tarps from his garage and built a rough shelter over the clearing. He brought electric heaters powered by long extension cords that stretched all the way from his barn. He wrapped the dragon in every blanket he could find. Said little during those early days. He watched Danny work with tired, golden eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 years of memory. Sometimes he would growl softly when the pain became too much. Sometimes he would close his eyes and slip into a deep sleep that lasted for hours. Lily found out about the dragon on the third day. Danny had told her to stay inside, but she was her father's daughter, curious and stubborn. She followed him into the forest one morning and stood at the edge of the clearing with her mouth hanging open. "Daddy," she whispered, "there is a dragon." Danny turned around and sighed. He had known this moment would come. He knelt down beside her and took her small hands in his. "Yes, sweetheart, his name is, he is hurt and we are helping him get better." Lily looked at the massive creature lying under the tarps and blankets. Then she looked back at her father with serious eyes. "Can I say hello?" Danny hesitated. He looked at who had lifted his head to watch them. The dragon's expression was unreadable. "Be gentle," Danny said, "and stay close to me." Lily walked slowly toward the dragon. She stopped a few feet away and gave a small wave. "Hi," she said. "My name is Lily. I am 8 years old. I like horses and reading and strawberry ice cream." Stared at her. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the corner of the dragon's mouth curved upward just slightly. "Hello, small one," he said. His voice was softer than Danny had ever heard it. I am very old. I do not remember what I like anymore." Lily tilted her head to the side. "That is sad. Maybe we can help you remember." From that day forward, Lily visited every afternoon after school. She sat beside him and read from her books, told him about her day, and asked him endless questions about space and stars and other worlds. The dragon listened to all of it. Sometimes he answered. Sometimes he just watched her with those ancient eyes, and Danny could see something changing in them. By the end of the second week, Danny knew that could not stay in the forest. The winter was coming and the cold would kill him. So Danny did what he always did when faced with a problem. He fixed it. He spent 3 weekends rebuilding a section of his barn. He knocked out walls, raised the ceiling, and installed industrial heaters that he bought from a factory that was closing down. He lined the floor with thick rubber mats and hung heavy curtains to keep the warmth inside. It was not pretty, but it was solid. Moving was another challenge. The dragon could barely walk, and his broken wing dragged painfully on the ground. It took 4 hours, with Danny supporting the dragon's weight as best he could, to travel the quarter-mile from the crash site to the barn. By the end, both of them were exhausted. But was warm, he was safe, and slowly, day by day, he began to heal. Danny learned many things during those months. He learned that could not eat normal food. Earth proteins made him sick, so Danny spent his evenings researching biology on old library computers and sketchy internet forums. He learned to make mineral broths from selenium, magnesium, and other elements that he ordered online. He learned that needed certain types of light to help his scales regenerate, so he bought special lamps from a reptile supply store and set them up around the barn. It was expensive. Danny worked extra hours at the shop to pay for it all. He took on jobs he normally would have turned down. He fixed cars late into the night while Lily did her homework at the little desk in the corner of the garage. One evening, watched Danny drag himself into the barn, clearly exhausted. "You work too hard for me," the dragon said. "I am not worth this effort." Danny set down the bag of supplements he had driven 40 miles to pick up. He looked at with tired but steady eyes. "That is not for you to decide," he said. "I help because I want to, not because I have to." Shook his great head slowly. "I do not understand you. In the galaxy, everything has a price. Every action creates a debt. Every gift requires payment, but you give and ask for nothing." Danny sat down on an old wooden crate and rubbed his eyes. "Where I come from, we have a saying. You help people because it is the right thing to do, not because you expect something back. And if you receive nothing in return, if all your kindness is wasted." Danny shrugged. "Then at least I know I tried. That is enough for me." Was silent for a long time. Danny could see the dragon thinking, turning the idea over in his ancient mind like a puzzle he could not solve. "Your species is very strange," finally said. Danny laughed. It was the first time he had laughed in weeks. "Yeah, we confuse ourselves most of the time too." The months passed quietly after that. Winter came and covered the farm in snow. Danny kept the barn warm and the broths fresh. Lily continued her daily visits and grew stronger. His scales began to shine again. His broken wing healed enough that he could fold it properly against his body. He still could not fly, and perhaps he never would again, but he was alive. More than that, he was happy. It was a strange feeling for a creature who had spent centuries at war. He did not know how to name it at first, but when Lily performed her school play in the barn, standing on a pile of hay bales and reciting her lines with dramatic gestures, felt something warm in his chest. When Danny sat beside him on cold nights, sharing stories about his wife and his childhood and his dreams for Lily's future, felt something like peace. He had been a high commander of the Empire. He had led fleets into battle and decided the fate of worlds. But no victory had ever felt as meaningful as this simple life in a human barn. He did not know that his old life was about to catch up with him. Far above Earth, hidden in the darkness between stars, a signal was being tracked. Escape Pod had sent an automatic distress call before it crashed. That signal had traveled across the galaxy, reaching ears that had hoped would never hear it. The Empire knew he was alive. And they were not happy about it. The black vehicles came on a Tuesday morning. Danny was in his garage, working on an old truck that had been giving its owner trouble for weeks. Lily had already left for school, and the day seemed like any other. The radio played country music softly in the corner. The smell of motor oil hung in the air. Then he heard the engines. He wiped his hands on a rag and walked outside. 3 large black SUVs were pulling up his driveway, moving slowly and carefully like they owned the place. Danny felt his stomach tighten. Nothing good ever came from vehicles like that. The SUVs stopped in front of his house. Doors opened and men stepped out. 6 of them, all wearing dark suits and body armor underneath. They carried weapons that Danny did not recognize, sleek and silver and clearly not from Earth. They scanned the property with sharp eyes, checking the barn, the forest, the house. Danny stood very still. Then 2 more people stepped out of the middle vehicle. A tall woman with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She wore a crisp black suit and carried a leather briefcase. Behind her was a younger man with glasses, holding a tablet computer and looking nervous. The woman walked toward Danny with the confidence of someone who had done this many times before. She extended her hand. "Mr. Cole, I am Long. This is my associate Marsh. We are from the Terran Advocacy Coalition." Danny shook her hand slowly. "The what now?" Smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "We are a legal organization that protects Earth's interests in galactic affairs. May we speak inside? This is a sensitive matter." Danny looked at the armed guards, then back at. He had about 100 questions, but he nodded and led them into his kitchen. The guards stayed outside, spreading out around the property like they were expecting an attack. Sat at the kitchen table and opened her briefcase. Stood behind her, tapping on his tablet. Danny remained standing, his arms crossed. "Mr. Cole," began, "I am going to explain some things that may be difficult to believe. Please let me finish before you respond." Danny nodded. "We know about the dragon. We know his name is, and we know you have been caring for him for the past several months. What you may not know is who actually is." She pulled a file from her briefcase and slid it across the table. Danny picked it up and looked at the first page. There was a photograph of but younger and stronger. His scales gleamed gold, and he wore armor covered in strange symbols. Behind him, an army of dragons stretched to the horizon. "Was not just a soldier," continued. "He was the supreme warlord of the Empire. He commanded their fleets during the Void conflicts, a series of wars that lasted for 300 years and shaped half the galaxy. He is considered one of the greatest military minds in known history." Danny stared at the photograph. He thought about the tired old dragon sleeping in his barn, the one who let Lily read him stories about wild horses. "He never told me," Danny said quietly. "He probably did not want to burden you," said. "But his past has caught up with him, and now it involves you." She pulled out another document. This one was covered in symbols and text that Danny could not read. In galactic law, there is something called a sustenance contract. When one being provides life-saving care to another, a debt is created. The greater the care, the greater the debt. By saving his life, by feeding him and sheltering him and nursing him back to health, you have created an enormous obligation. Owes you. Danny shook his head. "I did not do it for payment. I did it because he needed help." "We know," said, speaking for the first time. "That is exactly why we are here." Leaned forward, her expression serious. "Under normal circumstances, this would simply be a matter between you and, but the situation is complicated. When was injured, his people abandoned him. The Empire decided he was too old, too weak, too useless to save. They sent him on a fake diplomatic mission and did not respond when he was attacked. They expected him to die." "But he did not die," Danny said. "No, he did not. And now the Empire knows he is alive. Worse, they know that a human saved him. A human did what the entire Empire refused to do." Danny began to understand. They are embarrassed. More than embarrassed, they are furious. The value strength above all else. Compassion is seen as weakness. The fact that a primitive species from a backwater planet showed more honor than their entire civilization is humiliating beyond words. She pulled out one final document. This one had images of massive warships covered in spikes and weapons. 3 warships are currently heading toward Earth. They will arrive in approximately 6 days. Their official purpose is to retrieve and bring him home, but we have intelligence that suggests their real goal is something else entirely. Danny felt cold. What do they want? Met his eyes. They want to renounce the debt, to publicly declare that your help meant nothing, that human compassion is worthless and did not save his life. If he does that, the Empire saves face and they leave Earth alone. And if he refuses? Was silent for a moment. If he refuses, the Empire will consider it an insult. They will not attack Earth directly. That would cause too many problems with the Galactic Federation. But they will find other ways to make things difficult. Trade restrictions, political pressure, and there is always the possibility that himself will be taken and punished for his disobedience. Danny walked to the window and looked out at the barn. He could see the faint glow of the heat lamps through the gaps in the walls. Somewhere in there was resting, probably dreaming of things Danny could not imagine. "You came here with 6 bodyguards," Danny said slowly. "Why?" Stood and walked to stand beside him. "Because you are now a person of galactic significance, Mr. Cole. What you did matters, and there are those who would prefer that it did not matter at all." Danny thought about Lily. He thought about his quiet life, his small shop, his simple dreams. He had never asked for any of this. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "Nothing," said. "We are here to help you, to protect you and your daughter, to make sure that whatever happens next you have support. But the decision about what to do is not ours to make. It is not even yours." She looked toward the barn. "It is his." Danny stood there for a long time, watching the snow fall gently on the fields. The world had been so simple just a few months ago. Now it felt like everything was balanced on the edge of something he could not see. He finally turned back to, "I need to talk to him." Nodded. "Of course, take your time, but Mr. Cole, you should understand something. Whatever decides, whatever happens with the Empire, what you did matters. In a galaxy full of beings who calculate every action and weigh every cost, you helped a stranger simply because he needed it. That is rare. That is powerful. And that is why we are here." Danny grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. He had a lot to discuss with his friend, and not much time to do it. The galaxy was watching and the clock was running out. Danny found awake and staring at the barn ceiling. The old dragon's eyes were distant, lost in thoughts that stretched across centuries. He did not move when Danny entered, but his voice rumbled through the quiet space. "They found me." Danny closed the door behind him and walked to the wooden crate where he usually sat. He did not say anything for a moment. He just looked at his friend, this ancient creature who had become such a strange and important part of his life. "Told me everything," Danny finally said. "About who you were, about the void conflicts, about the Empire." Closed his eyes. "I should have told you myself. I was ashamed." "Ashamed of what? Being a war hero?" The dragon made a sound that might have been a bitter laugh. "I was no hero. I was a weapon. The Empire pointed me at their enemies and I destroyed them. Billions died because of my strategies. Worlds burned because of my orders. I told myself it was necessary. I told myself I was protecting my people. But in the end, when I grew old and weak, they threw me away like a broken tool." Danny listened quietly. He had learned that needed time to find his words, time to unpack the weight he carried. "For 900 years I believed that strength was everything," continued. "Power, victory, dominance. These were the values of my people and I embodied them perfectly. But when my ship was attacked, when I lay dying in that forest, all my strength meant nothing. I was alone. I was afraid. And then you came." He turned his great head to look at Danny. "A small creature from a small planet. You had no power. You had no weapons. You had nothing to gain from helping me, but you helped anyway. You covered me with blankets and brought me soup and sat with me in the rain." Danny shrugged. It seemed like the right thing to do. "That is exactly my point," said. "For 900 years I never did anything simply because it was right. I always calculated the cost. I always measured the benefit. But you did not calculate. You did not measure. You just acted." He lifted his head slightly, and Danny could see something like wonder in those ancient eyes. "Do you understand what that means to someone like me? Do you understand how completely it breaks everything I thought I knew about the universe?" Danny was quiet for a moment. He thought about all the nights he had spent in this barn, talking with about life and loss, and the strange connections between beings who should have had nothing in common. "So what are you going to do?" Danny asked. Was silent. "Said the Empire wants you to renounce the debt, to say that my help meant nothing. If you do that, they leave Earth alone." "Yes," said, "that is what they want. And if you refuse, then they will be humiliated. A human showed compassion when the mighty Empire showed none. Under our ancient codes, my debt to you extends to my entire house, my entire legacy. If I honor that debt, I am essentially saying that humanity is worthy of respect. The Emperor cannot allow that." Danny leaned forward. "What happens to you if you refuse?" His eyes met his. "They will take me back. I will face judgment for embarrassing the Empire. The punishment for such shame is usually death, but for someone of my former status it would likely be worse. Isolation, erasure. My name removed from all records, my victories attributed to others, my existence wiped from history." Danny felt a cold anger building in his chest. "So they abandoned you to die, and now they want to punish you for surviving. That is the way. Weakness must be hidden. Failure must be destroyed." "That is not strength," Danny said. "That is fear." "Blinked what?" "It is fear," Danny repeated. "They are afraid of looking weak, so they destroy anything that reminds them of weakness. They are afraid of being judged, so they judge everyone else first. That is not power. That is just fear wearing a mask." The dragon stared at him for a long moment. No one had ever spoken to him like this. No one had ever dared. "You are a strange creature, Danny Cole." Danny stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting over the snowy fields. Guards were still patrolling the property, dark shapes against the orange sky. "What do you want to do?" Danny asked. "Not what the Empire wants, not what the lawyers want. What do you want?" Was quiet for so long that Danny thought he might not answer. Then, slowly, the dragon spoke. "For 900 years I did what was expected of me. I followed orders. I served the Empire. I was the perfect warrior, the perfect commander, the perfect tool. And where did it lead me? To a broken ship, a dying body, and a forest on a planet no one had ever heard of." He lifted his head, and his golden eyes seemed to glow in the fading light. "Then you came, you and your daughter. You showed me something I had never seen before. You showed me that power is not about dominance. It is about choice. You chose to help me when you had every reason to walk away. You chose kindness when cruelty would have been easier. And in doing so, you gave me something the Empire never could." "What is that?" Danny asked. "A reason to keep living," said simply. "Not as a weapon, not as a symbol, just as myself." Danny felt his throat tighten. He turned away from the window and walked back to his friend. "So what are we going to do?" His mouth curved into something like a smile. It was still strange to see such an expression on a dragon's face, but Danny was getting used to it. "I am going to tell the truth," said. "I am going to tell the galaxy what you did for me. I am going to honor the debt, not because I have to, but because it is right. And whatever happens after that, at least I will know that for once in my long life, I did something truly worthy." Danny nodded slowly. "The Empire is not going to be happy." "No," agreed, "they are not. They might come after you. They might come after all of us." "Yes, they might." Danny looked at the dragon, this ancient warrior who had found peace in a human barn, who had learned to smile while listening to an 8-year-old read stories about horses. "Then we will face it together," Danny said. "That is what friends do." His eyes shimmered. For a moment he looked like he might cry, though Danny did not know if dragons could cry. "Friends," repeated, as if tasting the word for the first time. "Yes, I believe we are." Outside, the last light of the sun faded from the sky. 3 warships were getting closer every hour. The galaxy was about to learn what one human and one dragon could do when they stood together. And neither of them planned to back down. The warships arrived on a cold December morning. They hung in the space between Earth and its moon, massive and dark, their hulls covered with weapons and ancient symbols of conquest. Each ship was nearly a mile long, built for war and designed to inspire fear. For thousands of years, these vessels had brought death to countless worlds. Now they waited in silence, watching the small blue planet below. The Galactic Federation had sent observers. Dozens of ships from different species gathered at a safe distance, their sensors recording everything. News of the situation had spread across 100 star systems. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. On Earth, Danny stood in his barn with Lily at his side. And were there too, along with a team of technicians who had set up a communication array that could broadcast across the galaxy. Armed guards surrounded the property, though everyone knew they would be useless against an attack. Lay in the center of the barn, wrapped in his blankets. He looked tired but calm. His golden eyes moved slowly from face to face, taking in the scene. "Are you sure about this?" Danny asked quietly. "I have never been more sure of anything," replied. Stepped forward. "Commander, the communication link is ready. When you speak, your words will be transmitted to the fleet, the Federation observers, and every listening post in this sector. The entire galaxy will hear you." Nodded slowly. He looked at Lily, who was holding her father's hand tightly. "Little one," he said gently, "are you afraid?" Lily shook her head. "No, Daddy said we are doing the right thing, and the right thing is never something to be scared of." Smiled. It was a real smile now, not the awkward attempt from months ago. He had practiced. "Your father is a wise man," he said. "I know," Lily replied. "He is the best daddy in the whole world, and you are the best grandpa in the whole galaxy." Something in his expression shifted. His eyes grew bright, and he had to look away for a moment. "Yes," he said softly. "Yes, I suppose I am." Danny knelt beside his daughter. "Lily, I need you to go inside with now. The grown-ups have to do something important." Lily looked at, "Will you be okay, Grandpa?" The dragon lowered his great head until it was level with hers. "I will be fine, little one. And when this is over, you can read me another story. I want to know what happens to the wild horses." Lily smiled and hugged the dragon's snout. Then she lead her back to the house. Danny turned to, "Ready." "Ready," nodded to the technicians. Lights flickered on the communication array. A soft hum filled the air. "You are live," Commander said. Lifted his head. His voice, ancient and powerful, carried across the void. "I am High Commander of the Empire, Supreme Warlord of the Void Conflicts, Bearer of the Flame of I speak now to my people, to the Galactic Federation, and to all who listen in the darkness between stars." The barn fell silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. "I was abandoned by my people to die alone. My ship was attacked by pirates and no rescue was sent. I crashed on a distant planet, broken and bleeding, expecting my life to end in that cold and empty forest." His voice grew stronger. "But I did not die. I was saved, not by warriors, not by the Empire, not by any of the powers I had served for 900 years. I was saved by a human, a simple man, a father." Danny felt his heart pounding in his chest. "His name is Danny Cole. He found me in the rain and covered me with blankets. He brought me soup when I was cold. He rebuilt his barn to shelter me. He spent his money on medicine to heal my wounds. He sat with me through long nights and listened to my stories. Paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. He asked nothing of me. He expected nothing. He helped me simply because I was alone and hurting, and he could not walk away from someone in need. This is what humans call compassion. This is what my people have forgotten. In the space above Earth, the warships remained still. But Danny knew that somewhere on those vessels, the commanders were listening. The Emperor himself was probably watching. My people believe that strength is everything, continued. We value power, dominance, conquest. We see compassion as weakness. We see kindness as foolishness. But I have learned that we are wrong. His voice rose, filling the barn and reaching across the stars. True strength is not found in fire or weapons or the size of your fleet. True strength is found in the courage to care for a stranger. True strength is found in the choice to help when helping costs you everything and gains you nothing. True strength is found in the love of a father for his daughter and the love of a friend for a friend. Looked at Danny, his golden eyes shining. Danny Cole has shown me what the Empire has forgotten. He has taught me that compassion is not weakness. It is the highest form of power, and I will not deny that. I will not renounce the debt I owe him. I will not say that his kindness was meaningless. He raised his head high, and his voice became a declaration. I honor this debt. Under the ancient codes of my people, I declare that Danny Cole has earned my gratitude, my loyalty, and my protection. I declare that humanity has earned the respect of my house, my name, and my legacy. This is my testimony. This is my truth. And no emperor, no fleet, no force in this galaxy will make me say otherwise. The communication array fell silent. The message had been sent. Across the galaxy, billions of beings had heard the words of the ancient dragon. For a long moment nothing happened. The warships hung in space, dark and motionless. Then slowly they began to move. They turned away from Earth, their engines glowing as they headed back toward the stars. No shots were fired. No demands were made. The Empire had heard the testimony and they had chosen to withdraw. They could not attack without proving right. They could not silence him without admitting their shame. So they left, and in leaving, they acknowledged something they would never say out loud. Humanity had won. Let out a long breath. They are leaving. They are actually leaving. Danny did not respond. He walked to and placed his hand on the dragon's side. The scales were warm now, healthy and strong. You did it, Danny said. We did it, replied, together. The barn door opened, and Lily came running in, chasing behind her with an apologetic expression. She threw her arms around Danny and then turned to with bright eyes. Did the bad guys leave? Yes, little one said. The bad guys left. Good, Lily said firmly, because I want to finish my book. The horses are about to run free and I want you to hear it. Laughed. It was a deep, rumbling sound like thunder rolling over distant mountains, but there was joy in it, pure and simple. Then let us hear it, he said. I have waited long enough. Lily climbed onto a pile of hay bales, opened her book, and began to read. Her voice filled the barn, telling stories of freedom and adventure and wild things running under open skies. Danny sat down on his wooden crate and listened. Outside, the sun was rising over the snowy fields. The lawyers were packing up their equipment. The guards were standing down. And somewhere in the galaxy, beings who had never heard of Earth were whispering a new story. The story of a dragon and a human. The story of kindness freely given. The story of how one simple act of compassion changed everything. Closed his eyes and let Lily's voice wash over him. He had lived for 900 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had commanded fleets and decided the fate of worlds. But he had never felt more at peace than he did right now, in a barn in Oregon, listening to a little girl read about horses. This, he realized, was what he had been searching for all along. This was home,